This is the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast session number 356. Patty Castellanos on birthing breakthroughs.
Welcome to the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast with Jason Linett, your professional resource for hypnosis training and outstanding business success. Here's your host, Jason Linett.
Welcome to the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast, and this is our official, very special Christmas episode, though it is actually releasing on Thursday, December 23rd, and not everybody celebrates Christmas, so let's do this right. Happy December 23rd, everybody, or whatever day you happen to be listening to this conversation. But in theme with the holiday and in theme with the gift of sharing, I wanted to make it a point to produce this episode with Patty Castellanos as the episode this week. I first got a chance to be introduced to Patty, at least online, I'd say going back, it must have been about 4 or 5 years ago. And over time, getting to know her through various social media channels, and then by joining some of the programs that I offer online and becoming a very active member of them, and someone who truly dove in and implemented the content and was happy to share the results. Some of you may have caught the live stream I did with her a few weeks ago, or at the time of this release, a few months ago in the Work Smart Hypnosis community, telling the story as to how she tripled the size of her business in a rather short span of time, which, as a heads up, I would recommend listen to this episode first and then head over to the show notes at worksmarthypnosis.com/356, and we'll put a link there so you can actually watch the replay of that live stream episode. Though inside of this conversation, you're going to hear a bit of a personal frustration with an approach to personal change that she was involved in at first, the discovery as to finding hypnosis as a means to make things happen faster and more reliably, as well as an incredibly personal insight from the birthing and even hypnobirthing world, and letting that now become a large motivation of the work that she does. What's also really cool about this conversation with Patty is to hear her personal transition from working in an office to now running a business online, serving people all around the world. And to use her words, which is a better phrasing than mine was, she was doing the online sessions before it was even cool. And mostly because here she is as a mother who also, on top of everything you're about to hear, homeschools, and to have that control over her family life, to have that flexibility also available to her clients as well, plus some incredible insights as to how we navigate through the conversation. I have to highlight two of my favorite parts of this conversation to not only give you the motivation to listen all the way through, but to tell you my two biggest takeaways from this chat. One, not to be self-serving, but talking about this journey of changing the dialogue of her business, getting away from the royal we and instead building every bit of communication based upon that being a person in front of you who is someone you deeply care for and you are passionate about and you know you can help. There is one strategy alone inside of that, of just transparency as well as integrity. And that's really what should be behind every bit of the messaging that we put out there. So getting laser focused on how we communicate the value of what we do by having one of the smaller notes in this conversation, individual service pages off of your website, as well as having that clarity of communication once somebody's on a call with you, so we can really operate from a place where it's as if they already know us. So first takeaway is part of the backstory behind this tripling the business and even further beyond, honestly, at this point. The second part is something that I thought was so cool. The way that she engages in a conversation after the session is over. So really, it's a reality that there's less and less of us that are these cookie cutter hypnotists. The popularity of having the magic scripts that solve everything, that's no longer the dominant dialogue. And even people who have been trained in a very rigid protocol approach, you have to do these 5 or 6, or however many steps, otherwise you're not going to get results. That's kind of the dying minority in our profession. So the reality is the majority of us are in this artistic, flexible approach. Though what I want you to hear from the way that Patty wraps up her sessions is that it's from that interaction That's how she then, and I'll use air quotes on this, that's how she then prescribes what self-hypnosis tools, what audios, what resources they're going to make use of. So you have two ears and one mouth. So sometimes our communication ought to be proportionate, and it's by utilizing some active listening. This is how you can serve your client better. This is also how you can give them even greater skills, assets, tools, and resources moving forward. So happy to share this conversation with you on this special holiday episode. Once again, head over to the show notes at worksmarthypnosis.com/356. That'll bring you over to find Patty's website, her social handles, her email link, all of that. We'll also give a link to that previous live stream we did over in the public community about the strategies that she had modeled to triple the size of her business. And while you're there too, check out hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. This is the all-access pass to my hypnosis business training library that there's no need to have to reinvent the wheel, and to look at some of the methods that we talk about and have a proven roadmap to model and get there faster and easier, attracting the clients that are absolutely excited to work with you and are willing to schedule with you, wait the 2 or 3 weeks if necessary, if not more, and yes, indeed, pay your professional fees. It's a whole lot easier to get there by having a proven roadmap to make it happen. And that's exactly what Hypnotic Business Systems is, which, as a heads up, there's a lot of stuff in that program, as well as the interactive community that we have. As of now, there's more than 250 hours of stuff and more than 24 specific business action plans, which I'll call it out. That would be overwhelm to be thrown into on your own. However, 2 quick highlights even for those of you in the program already. First of all, it's all published in a specific order. And that's the sequence that I tend to recommend to go through it. Then again, if you're someone who's already actively seeing clients, pick like 1 or 2 specific modules of things you want to add into your business to be found more reliably and have clients ready to call you. Hey, you're not being found on the web? Go to search engine optimization, learn those methods, employ the strategies that I teach, get that up and running, then move on to something else. Hey, you want to do some videos for your website? Well, learn the exact strategy that I teach so that people actually find your videos, actually watch them, and then even better, are then inspired to take action as a result of it. You're going to learn the step-by-step formula of how we reliably do that. Plus, even better, you get a full case study as to all the videos on my service-based website, so you can see the exact how, where, and why these strategies are put into use. Plus, like 24 or 25 other specific business action plans, plus stuff of mine you can actually have the permission to slap your name on and reproduce as your own. Whole lot easier to get started when you've got a model to make use of. Check that out at hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. And with that, let's jump into this very phenomenal holiday episode. Here we go. This is episode number 356, Patty Castellanos on birthing breakthroughs.
I am a licensed mental health counselor, and I've been a licensed mental health counselor for what seems like an eternity at this point. And I got tired of working with clients that continuously repeated the same cycles over and over again. And it was just a part of the process. And they would get somewhat better, and then something would trigger their circumstances again. And boom, they were right back in my seat. And of course, insurances love that. So for me, the big thing that got me interested in hypnosis was understanding that there was more to healing than just sitting and talking, that our subconscious minds really were able to actually do more than that. And I decided to get certified in hypnosis so that I can add more to my practice. And then, of course, I was planning for my second child. And when I was planning for my second child, I'm like, oh, I can use this hypnosis for my second birthing experience. And of course, I started looking more into it, and I took hypnobirthing. And that combination of hypnobirthing and hypnosis was just completely career shifting, mindset shifting, and it allowed me to really work in the direction that I really wanted to go in.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things I'd love to kind of unpack inside of that. So going back to sort of the origins of your career, what were some of the things you were working on the most with, we can say this word here in this situation, your patients back then?
They were my patients. You're right. And it was that medical model. And I was working with a very diverse population, mostly working with mothers, working with families, working with a lot of situations of brokenness, because really, that's what the system was designed to promote, brokenness, and people that were looking for solutions, but were constantly living in the label of what they thought was going on. And when I actually moved into hypnosis, I was so happy to get away from the labeling process, looking at the greater picture, looking at that healing aspect where within them they had their solutions. All they needed to do was allow that to come out by trusting that they are able to move past those things, and that it no longer had to be that comforting blanket that they were so used to continuing with.
So just to get specific on that, you talk about this pattern of kind of talking through the issue and that would create some bit of resolution, but then something would trigger it and then kind of being back where you had begun. Was it a philosophy? Was it a mindset around the hypnosis that you found to be different? Was it even just a specific set of techniques you found to be effective? What kind of facilitated that transition for you?
Well, it was really the ease of getting to the root cause without having to continue to trigger the person. And at that point, they moved out of the medical model, they moved out of that patient mindset, and then they were a client that no longer was triggered, but rather they were able to find their solutions within themselves and effortlessly move into their healing. And all of a sudden, the mindset was different. It was a mindset of, oh, I no longer have to be afraid of insert the symptom here, because I'm able to move past that. And it was just a beautiful opportunity to really see them through those transformations.
Yeah, so then in that journey, was hypnosis already on your radar? Was it something that introduced you to it? What's kind of that story?
Well, hypnosis really became a part of my radar after I had my first child. My first child, he was born in 2011. My goodness, he just turned 10. And I had absolutely no idea about anything related to birthing, except for the fact that I just took the little, 1 hour class that they tell you you need to take at the hospital when you do the tour. And of course, you pick up what to expect when you're expecting, and you think all of a sudden you're an expert in all things pregnancy, labor, and delivery. But boy, was I wrong.
Mhm.
I had no idea that, unfortunately, the system is designed to just go through a process and doesn't really help a mother understand the mind body connection and how the mind and the body work together with the baby to actually make labor and delivery a process that then is a collaborative process, really. This is not designed to be a medical process, it's designed to be a process where the woman becomes a mother. And let's be real, when you think about that process of becoming a mother, then all of a sudden, that mindset shift turns you into the process of really becoming a parent, even before you become a parent. So for me, that mindset shift began when I started researching, what could I have done differently? What would it look like if I would have allowed myself to connect deeper with my instincts and to connect deeper with my journey as a mother. So when I was going through all of that healing process, I then learned about hypnosis, and I also learned about VBAC, which is a vaginal birth after a cesarean. And that process then led me to really get to know how to heal myself from the fact that I had no clue what I was doing the first time around and do it differently for my second child. And it was amazing because I became certified in hypnosis to learn more about that, which then led me to learn more about what my mind and my body were able to do together. That then led me into hypnobirthing. And here I am 8 years later
Yeah.
almost. And I have been supporting, guiding so many mothers through that journey of healing, of understanding, of trust through preconception, pregnancy, labor, and delivering well into postpartum and their motherhood journeys.
There's a lot inside of that, and you actually tell a story. Our oldest is also 10 years old, by the way. Uh, but there's something in that story as to going in as we were trained with the birth plan. And here's the moment where, and this kind of illustrates the fact of part of that world. We said to this doctor inside of a much larger practice, we would like to do a natural childbirth. And he actually said, I don't know how to assist with that. I've only been trained in medically assisted birth. And to his credit, he goes, luckily, we're a large practice. Let me get you someone else. And that was an awkward 5 minutes to sit in that room. And then she comes in and goes, oh, good, hypnobirthing. You just basically call me when you're ready.
That's amazing.
But to learn that connection to it and, to see how, as part of that program is, as mother goes deeper into labor, mother goes deeper into relaxation, being a theme of that. And I love this part of your story, though, that it began with this personal, quest to go, as is the classic hypnobirthing story, as to the second time it's going to be different,
Exactly.
is very often the frame of that. So was that where the focus remained, or at what point did this kind of branch out beyond the birthing process?
Well, again, because I had already been seeing my clients and I already had a client base, I then decided that I was going to shift and integrate my new knowledge of hypnosis, hypnobirthing, and of course, my knowledge of the world of mental health and combine it in a way that I could very easily and effectively help my clients through their challenges and struggles in motherhood and even before motherhood as they're preparing to enter that conception period, right? So when I really decided to merge what I do with what I know works, then it completely changed. And not only did it change in the way that I help my clients through what they do, but it also helped me as a practitioner to become better at what I do because I am able to really hone in on what they need. And then once I do that, their subconscious takes over the rest. And when that happens, their transformations are completely unique to them. And I don't have to do the work because they're doing it on their own. And it's amazing to see so many women and mothers that have passed through my screen that have made massive transformations, not only for themselves, but for their families as well.
So I'd love to rewind the story back even further. Was getting into, into mental health counseling, was that always the career path? Did it begin somewhere else?
It actually started initially, I wanted to be that person. I remember being in college and being that person that wanted to make massive changes. And I remember having dreams of reaching so many people and making changes in the lives of women and mothers, but not really knowing how I was going to do it. And mental health was just a natural progression, right? From psychology, it was a natural progression of how I was going to do things. But then once I got into that private practice world on one, I said, there's got to be more. And once I entered the world of hypnosis and hypnobirthing, it naturally opened up that world where I'm now able to access so many more people. And somehow I reverted back to that original goal of making massive changes in my clients' lives, bigger than they ever imagined, just in mental health.
Yeah. Is there, you mentioned just have, being able to witness people's changes and being a part of that story. Is there one that kind of stands out that kind of is that, sort of that flag that's planted as to this is the reason why I do this work?
I'll be honest with you, there is not one client that stands out, and I say that because to me, each and every client that I see, that every session they have this aha moment that they, come out of session with this message or this deeper understanding or this change that they now understand. I close my Zoom session and do a happy dance. Each and every one. And to tell you the truth, I never want that feeling to ever go away.
Yeah.
And even this morning, I got a call from one of my clients that messaged me, and she told me that she used one of the techniques that we had been working on when she went to see her doctor. And she texted me and she told me, it worked. It worked. And of course, I did a happy dance along with her.
Yeah.
And it just feels so good to see these women that, after having a baby, for example, have feelings of anxiety, overwhelm, fear, doubt. And all of a sudden, after a few sessions, they're really referring me to their friends, talking about their changes, about how great they're feeling. And it makes such a difference to be able to do it in just a few sessions versus the old pattern of let's go for 6 months and then see what happens.
Yeah. Well, let's get a little bit more specific here. First of all, how is it that you mentioned here are the ones that are coming in by referral? What's currently working in terms of having your new clients find you?
Well, one of the amazing things that completely changed is that now I get to show my clients
Yes.
what things are like before they even begin with me. And it's amazing to be able to not have to work on a sales or marketing plan.
Yeah.
I just have to talk to them, listen to them, tell them what their solutions can look like. Then, of course, they can listen to my work. And once they come to me, I don't even have to sell them
Hmm.
because we've already built a relationship before we've even sat down to have an actual session. And sometimes my heart still flutters because it's real. That relationship is real before we even sit down for our first session. Versus in the past, when I had to work so hard to then get a client that by the time I sat down with them, I even have a doubt whether or not they're really there because they believe in themselves and they believe in me. Now I know they do.
That's a beautiful thing to highlight. And it's something that, kind of becomes, I'd say, the ultimate goal of the business owner to build that world where, yes, early on, and I say this in full knowledge of the fact that I teach people sales strategies, but the reality is we use that to get up and running. And then here comes this reputation. Here comes this digital footprint that we can have. Here comes the world that we've now established to which, we just are basically having a conversation. And at the end of that chat, it's a very seamless pivot to go, hey, you know what? I'm looking at my calendar and Thursday next week, I could do a 1 o'clock. Is that a fit? And that's
Absolutely.
the official sales process because it's already established at that point. You mentioned this mindset by the time you're sitting down with them as a client, they already have rapport with you. They already know you. What are some of the things that you're doing to help to make that happen?
Well, first and foremost, my website is personal.
Yes.
My website is me. My website is not some sort of a template where it gives some sort of a false professional identity. It's me. And I'm going to say a story where I kind of think back now and I laugh. Well, before I became the authentically me therapist I am today, I was Patricia Castellanos, licensed mental health therapist. And I had a suit and I had all of my certificates, and I felt that was my persona. But let's be real, that's not who I am. That's not who I really was. And I had the royal we plastered all over my website.
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to say I have an entourage, but I really don't. It's just me. So then, once I really became the person that I am today, the person that really is comfortable with this relationship that I build with my clients, that is no longer a triggering cycle of boring psychotherapy. I now have built a relationship where my website reflects who I am. And I'm Patty. I'm Patty Castellanos. I am the hypnotist, hypnotherapist, therapist. I am that person that is here to support you through those big things that really, at the end of the day, aren't going to feel so big because we talk, we laugh, and we really break through some of those things that you've got deep down inside that maybe you had no idea were even there. And I share with my clients audios, videos. I offer them true options to download so that they can get to know me before we even sit down with the session. And they get real options that will give them tools to get to work right now. For example, I've got a new client that I am starting with in a couple of weeks that just today I sent them a hypnotic affirmations download to get them started on the right mindset to where we're going.
Yeah. Now that's happening even before you're officially meeting, right?
Exactly.
I love it. I love it. I want to go back to something that you brought up there a moment ago, where here's where it was before, where it was a little bit more, if I can say, put on as to I'm now putting on the suit, I'm now putting up these certificates, and this is who I am, this is how qualified I am. And really now it's a conversation with Patty. Is that a transition that came naturally to you? Is that something that you discovered on your own by testing? Or talk us through that journey of making that shift.
Well, that was the transition where I then believed that what I was offering was truly something that was transformative. The suit and the fancy paperwork, and here are all my qualifications, That's something that I felt I had to do. Whereas now I believe in what I offer is better and grander and more transformative than anything I ever did before. So not only am I confident that what I offer now will absolutely bring you the solutions that you seek, but at the same time, my clients believe that too because of the relationships we build.
Right. Yeah. That's amazing that when we start to, really promote by way of the service-based mindset and really show our passion, that's where it really begins to take off, as opposed to now I am standing in front of the camera and I am talking like this because I think that's what I'm supposed to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So then let's go inside of the actual client work. So now someone's scheduled with you, someone's now about to work with you. Kind of walk us through that user experience. If there's sort of a through line, a story that kind of makes up how it is that you work with people, like what methods may come into play, what approaches are important to you.
Well, for me, because of my background and just because of who I am, and because, well, I'm a mom, and when I get together with another mom, I like to talk. I love using conversational hypnosis. So, one of the things that I do with my clients is really, you're home. I have been doing virtual services way before virtual was cool
Yeah.
because I have kids. And my second one, she nursed for quite a while longer than I ever expected. So, therefore, I was home with my kids. And I was doing virtual sessions over Skype. And so I would see my clients from the comfort of their home and mine. So whenever I see my clients in the virtual world, I notice that they're so much more comfortable than I ever saw a client in the office because they're within their very own comfortable space. They're in their own safe place and they're able to just unwind without feeling like they have to get into a car or go places and then of course be in a space that they don't even know. So really I just tell them find your comfortable spot, grab a blanket, grab your bottle of water, and then we'll just talk. And the beginning of our sessions is usually, hey, how's it going? What's going on? Tell me a little bit about that. And once they begin to share their story, I listen and I just allow my clients to have their place and space to really understand why they're here. And in them understanding why they came to see me, of course, I'm listening, understanding, and looking to find those things within their conversation that will bring about their healing. And then once we do that, then I allow them to just continue to focus on their breathing, continue to focus on their purpose, and I move them through the hypnotic session, allowing to whatever comes up, whatever comes through, to just do so without any stress or tension about what's supposed to happen. And I allow them to have their journey through their struggles or challenges to find their solutions. And then once we're done and we have that time to kind of debrief, to decompress after the session, then I just ask them, what came up? Did anything surprise you? What, what's your biggest takeaway from our session? And then we talk about that for a little bit. And then once we do that, then we use their takeaway to really develop their unique and individualized tools from their takeaway. And it's a beautiful process because each client each woman, each mother comes out with a different understanding, with a different tool, with a different technique, with a very unique perspective to themselves to guide their motherhood journey.
There's a aspect inside of that which is just gorgeous, that moment of debriefing with the client. That the cynical way to put this is that most sessions are lost based on how they begin and how they end. And while everyone else's focus is on what techniques do I use, what do I do in the process, which clearly that's absolutely important, but the framing that goes before the session as well as that recap afterwards. And I love that you're listening to them in that moment to then define, here are the methods you're going to use between now and the next time that we meet, right?
Absolutely. And the thing about that also is that, yes, technique, strategy, understanding what, of course, you may or may not do is important. But I feel that the greater takeaway from my session work is that I'm not cookie cutter. I am not that therapist that is going to guide you the same way as I guide each and every client. And I am not that person that is going to guide even one client in the same way every one of the sessions that they come to me for. Because really, each session builds on the next. And as we move through the sessions, you may have a different experience each time we go through it. And it's a beautiful opportunity to see that because it's constantly refreshing itself.
And what's really cool inside of that, to listen to this entire conversation so far, to paraphrase it, you found yourself in a little bit more of a problem centered approach in the early days, and then moving to something that was more solution oriented as well as solving the deeper core of the issue. It is really, everyone can hear, I'm sure, the passion in your voice as to, this is exciting, this is invigorating, and this is the kind of dialogue that people need to hear, because there's often this conversation as to, yeah, but I only can handle only a few clients a week because people come in with their problems and that just wears you down. And when I hear that, my response is always, that means you're connecting with the wrong part of your client. See them as the result, bring them along for the ride.
Yes, yes, I agree 110% because I'm a mom and I homeschool my two kids. And when I do see my clients, the last thing I want is to see my clients as a problem. Yes, they come to me with what they call their problems and their challenges and their struggles. But once we separate that those problems, challenges, and struggles are not theirs, and once we separate them as their very own unique individual mother, woman, person, and all of a sudden the solutions open up. It's almost like their whole world changes once they realize that that separation from their problems allows them to see that what they envision has a place now.
Now, I want to go back to something that you and I've actually had a conversation on before, and we shared it as a live stream inside of the Work Smart Hypnosis community. That was that there's a time frame that by making a few simple shifts to your business, correct me on this, you tripled the size of your business. Was that the statistic that we pulled?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Talk us through some of those changes that you made.
Honestly, it's still insane to even think about where I started and where I am.
Yeah.
Because I started telling myself, well, if I begin with Jason, as long as I begin with one client, I will be okay. And here I am today, having to tell clients, I can begin with you. My first available appointment is in 2 weeks, is unbelievably amazing because I am able to really focus on my clients, that really matter, that really count. So, to begin with, I made those changes to my website. I no longer am a part of royalty. I am uniquely me. And I have so much fun when I talk to my clients. And that's one of the amazing things that I really value about the changes that I've made. That once they do come into contact with me, once we do have that first conversation, it flows and it feels so good and it feels so real that once I tell them, all right, we're ready to go, let's schedule that appointment. I have available the first week of December. They're so excited, and I'm excited, and it feels so good.
So then, in addition to changing the language, putting more of your personality out there, what are some of the other changes that you made to help make all this happen?
Well, I also allowed myself to share my message more specifically. Then
Yeah.
I also, because my message was that much more specific and clean, I no longer had that long, drawn out message. It was really about here's what I hear, and these are the solutions. So, once again, it became that focus on the solutions and the growth versus the problems. And when I started offering that to my clients, all of a sudden, they started to really hear and see change. Then I started really giving them that value that I no longer felt I had to hold on to because, oh my gosh, this is going to be an additional $45 or something like that, right?
Mhm.
Once I felt like it was okay to release that valuable content, those valuable audios, that valuable information in a group format or whatever the situation was, all of a sudden, I noticed that the clients that were coming to me for real change. They were the clients that were not the, oh, well, I'm not sure. Can I have a 50% discount? So I realized that once I began to feel comfortable giving away my valuable information, my knowledge, my shift work, it really then meant a shift in the clients that came to me to really hone in on whatever they needed additional work on.
So if we can unpack that there was this more willingness to give value, and by doing so, it made it even easier to receive the value back. I was on a call with someone this morning, and he was telling this conversation as to how someone had a question about his service. And rather than email, he did the same thing that I often do, which is like, let me just pop on camera, make you a quick video, and answer you. And in the response, it was this back and forth, and the person signed up for this person's service. And the whole thing was, I goes, can you show me how you did that? Like, what do you mean? He goes, I just paid you more than I charge for my service. And I have to run people through this like hour and a half sales process with multiple videos. And I just bought on the relationship.
Exactly.
And that's really where we want our focus to be. People do business with people, though at the same time, we do want to have a cleanliness of message. Is this about the same time where you started to separate services out on your website to their own pages, or what was the sort of time frame of that shift?
Okay, so on my website, I had this great, big, long, drawn out page full of
Yeah.
services. I mean, basically, you could go on there as if it was like a menu on a Chinese buffet that
Yep.
had everything you could possibly imagine, and it was all delicious and appetizing, and you wanted a little bit of each.
Now, Patty, you have to say it the right way, though, which is that it's like a Chinese buffet in that there's a lot of stuff that should be there, and then like random stuff that you're like, why is there pizza? Why are there chicken nuggets?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And in fact, you could probably pick and choose and say, well, I have a little of anxiety, but I also have perhaps a little bit of sadness. And oh, I definitely have some difficulty sleeping.
Mhm. Well, that highlights, if I can jump in for a second, that highlights why, and my official stance on this is yes, that it's good to niche down, but the fact is we don't have to do it with just one specific thing. I've got the site opened up right now. Could you go ahead and give people the website? And of course, we'll put this in the show notes, but go ahead and plug the website now so that way if people want to follow along with us in real time.
Absolutely. My website is theexpressioncenter.com.
There you go. Yeah, because I'm looking here and here's the services tab. And if I go to the page specifically about VBAC confidence and I go through this, clearly Patty is the expert who does this. And here's, oh, this looks familiar. Here's the Get Started Now button, which then starts that conversation and then beautifully tells your story. If I click on services and then I look at hypnofertility, suddenly now I have a very specific dialogue. So this is a way that we can niche down and become extremely focused. But at the same time, I can click and here's a page about anxiety relief. So it's by targeting these individual issues that people can then interact with exactly what they're looking for. And it might just be, as you just said, as they're looking at VBAC confidence, here's the conversation as to, well, it's really my anxiety that's causing this issue. And now they're seeing that, okay, she can also help me with this. This is going to be a full service thing as opposed to just one specific, peg that needs to be addressed.
Absolutely. And the truth of the matter is that each person is an individual. And within working on your VBAC or your pregnancy or fertility goals, you can also discover that perhaps there's some anxiety, perhaps some fear of repeating the same patterns of your first birth, or maybe even the doubts of, oh, well, everybody says that I shouldn't do this. So when we work together, we're able to address the core issues, but then go deeper. And when we go deeper into really going to the root of whatever is going on, then all of a sudden, it almost feels like a burst of sunshine because it really goes from the center, from that core, and it can affect so many other things within that person, completely creating that shift without even realizing it. I've had so many clients come in for anxiety or for stress that never really thought that their difficulty sleeping had anything to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
But then all of a sudden, when we worked through these sessions to work on the anxiety and perhaps those recurring thoughts on their mind, they're like, wow, all of a sudden I can sleep better. I'm no longer thinking about how to save the world at the end of the night before going to sleep.
Yeah. It's all connected.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been fantastic. For people wanting to get in contact with you, what's the best way they can track you down?
Absolutely. They can reach me on my website at theexpressioncenter.com. And on there, they can reach me through getting started now, booking a consultation. They can also email me directly at pmcexpression@gmail.com. And I am open to talking to my clients and really helping them to work through whatever situations they may have.
Awesome. Which we'll put all those links in the show notes over at worksmarthypnosis.com. This is episode number 356. So if you just load up worksmarthypnosis.com/356, that's going to be the easiest way to track down all those resources there. Patty, I've got to congratulate you on what you've done and the lives that you've impacted. And thank you for coming on and sharing this. Any recommendations, any thoughts for the listeners out there before we wrap up?
My thoughts on that would be first and foremost, trust in yourself. Have that deep trust in your intuition that you are doing the very best for your clients. And when you trust in yourself, you're able to have that conversation with them authentically to help them really find their solutions. It's not about what you know, It's about who you are as your client's biggest support, and it's about what your clients are working on. So trust that your work and what you're doing with your clients has a purpose. And I strongly suggest being authentic. Be you. You're not the person that trained you. You are not a piece of paper. And when you truly affect change in your clients, it's because you build that relationship. So if you are you, then you can further impact that relationship in a positive way.
Jason Linett here once again, and as always, thank you so much for interacting with this program, leaving your reviews online, and sharing it in your ongoing conversations, and plus as well, reaching out to our phenomenal guests. We've nicknamed the thing from Stephen Colbert. He used to call it the Colbert Bump. We officially can call it the Work Smart Hypnosis Bump, where this becomes a mechanism that gets the guest clients, has people signing up for their programs, or just opening up a dialogue and creating friendships. Fun fact, Patty, as well as the other Patty, Patty Bell, who was on the podcast last week, have created their own little private mastermind group of the two of them, which I thought was so awesome as they were both engaging in some of the communities that I run. And I thought, hey, there's no better thing we can do than to put their two episodes back to back. This is why we've said it for years. The more we're all successful, the more we're all successful. So to reach out to this week's Patty, head over to worksmarthypnosis.com/356. That'll bring you over to the show notes of this episode to see how to interact. And while you're there too, check out hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. Model what works, get out there even easier, nail your messaging from the start, and yes, indeed, make it rain. Check that out at hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. Happy holidays, everybody. We'll see you all soon.
Thanks for listening to the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast at WorkSmartHypnosis.com.